That's almost a perfect segue. You were talking there about the good, the bad, and the ugly, where you were just saying that it's a pang of kind of fear when you're on stage, when something kind of you feel like it's about to go wrong, or it has gone wrong. Now, 9 times out of 10, the audience won't know it's gone wrong, and you can make it a new trick, and it just happens that way. But was there a time where you thought something was good, it went bad, and then just went very ugly?
It doesn't happen much with big illusions. Like, you can't really cover when something goes wrong because it's usually very obvious that it's gone wrong.
Yeah.
I actually have, so like I took down some notes because I was trying to think of like good, bad, ugly. I don't have it for necessarily all incorporating into one story. I broke it down to like 3 different kind of stories.
Whatever you homework being done and everything. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say like my good story, which was more of like a career highlight, was my first performance solo with the Illusionists. We were in Colombia, in Bogota, and we were performing in this like 8,000 seat arena, and they were allowing me to do the Metamorphosis trunk by myself. So I wasn't the assistant, I was the magician.
Nice.
And I'd worked forever to get this good. So I actually was fortunate enough. I got trained by Jonathan Pendragon to do the sub trunk.
Nice.
So that was like another career highlight in and of itself. So in Bogota, obviously the main language is Spanish. And everyone that had speaking in their act was speaking in Spanish, or if they didn't know Spanish, they had someone translating over the mic for them. So they said to me, we want you to introduce the sub trunk, not just come out and do it. Like, you're a magician now, you need to introduce it, you can't just come out. And I was like, okay. And they said, it's going to be in Spanish, so you can either learn it in Spanish or we can have someone translate for you. Maybe it's better if we just have someone translate because I don't know Spanish. And I said, I'm going to do it in Spanish. And they're like, wait, what? Do you speak Spanish? I'm like, no, but I'll learn. And this was maybe a month before we went there. So I got the script, got 3 different people who spoke Spanish to like translate it and get it really like perfect for Colombian audience. And I learned it. I went down there, and in that show, I was also assisting Mark. Ginger had stepped out of the show, and I was filling in for Ginger with Mark Kalin. And then I was also assisting everyone else in the show and also doing sub trunk on my own. So that show was like full on for me. So we went to do like a technical rehearsal, and they were like, okay, Abby, like here's your mic pack, like go on stage. And we went on a lunch break right before I did my run. And during the lunch break, the head of the company of the Illusionists people came. The people that were in charge of the show in Colombia came during the lunch break. And so they all sat in the front row of the audience like, who's this girl? Like, show us what you got. So I did the technical rehearsal. Everything went fine. And then came the show. And I'd already done like a few illusions, and then I'm standing in the wing. The person before me is just finishing, and I'm standing there like so nervous because I'm like, it's bad enough when you're doing something new and you're speaking your native language because you're like, wait, if I forget something, am I gonna sound stupid? I guess I can just improvise my speech. This is another language, and I'm not even fluent in Spanish, so I couldn't even improvise if I wanted to. So I'm standing in the wings, I'm like, oh my god. And then like I hear my music start, and in my mind I was just like, don't screw it up. And I like walked on stage, and then I like did my whole speech, and like everyone was like cheering. I did the illusion, it went really well, nothing bad happened. And then like I come forwards, and then I hit like my last pose, and it's like, you don't know how good it feels as a performer until you're by yourself hearing 8,000 people screaming for you. And to me, I was just like, oh my God, I did it. And then I got off stage, and this kind of loops back to the thing of like the male-dominated industry.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else in the show was guys. All the other magicians were men. And I've known them for a couple of years now, and they said to me, they're like, oh my God, you were actually really good. And I was like, I'm just going to take that. Thank you. Like, I know you're trying to be nice. It's kind of a backhanded compliment, but thank you. So I was like, interesting. They thought maybe I was going to choke. I was going to mess up or something like that. But they were like, wow, you actually were really good. And all the feedback was great. And to me, that was like such a big deal. I think I had a crazy high from that for like a month.
Oh, I'd say so.
Yeah. And that was the first part of me like proving myself to the company. They put me on the spot and was like, a different country, a different language, you have minimal rehearsal, go. If you can handle this doing that, then, you know, you can handle it.
Even being willing to learn Spanish for it is like, that shows that you'll put in the work to go learn a different language just to be able to perform.
Yeah.
Those little moments make you kind of fearless when you can adapt at a moment's notice. In the future, if you get thrown anything, you feel kind of fearless to it because you're like, oh, it was that one time where I had to do this, this, and this. You know, it does. I know in my own career with the escapes, there's been times where last minute there was a curveball and you just kind of go with it and everything is okay. But afterwards, you feel, if anything gets thrown at me bad again, I'll be kind of prepared. Sometimes it goes crazy, and that's just how it is.
I think it's also a respect thing when you're performing in a different country to try and learn part of their language.
Yeah,
I understand if maybe English is your second language, maybe your first language is Italian, and then you're performing in another country that's another language. Maybe, English is fine. But for someone like me, it's not that difficult. I just need to put time and effort into it. And when I went and performed in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, I learned some Arabic because I was like, it's hard enough now I'm a woman coming out on stage, which is like a big no-no in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to try and win them over with speaking in their language, which they liked it. They were like, oh, yeah. And some of the other magicians didn't. They just spoke English, which was completely fine. But I was like, I want to do more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Yeah.
That must be a very, very surreal experience performing in Saudi Arabia. It's like it's such a different experience, I say, than Vegas.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, interesting. So the shows I was in here in Vegas were, one of them was Fantasy, which is a topless show. And the other one is Vegas the Show, which is like the last remaining showgirl show here in town. So going from that to Saudi Arabia, where I had to be covered from just under my chin all the way to my wrists and everything covered down to my toes, and nothing could be tight. Like I had to wear like this skirt thing because I wasn't allowed to like basically show my bum. Yeah. Like that's a big no-no. They had to bring in the guy that was in charge of the whole thing to give an okay to my costume. They didn't have to do that to any of the guys. The guys could wear whatever they wanted. And for me, they're like, it has to be fully covered. It can't be sheer. It can't be see-through. It can't be tight. You can't be sexually suggestive in any way. And as a woman, I wasn't allowed to touch anyone from the audience. I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things. It was rough because, a normal magic show, someone comes up on stage, you shake their hand, here, you grab their wrist to be like, here, take this, or you like put your hand on their back to direct them, let's walk over here, which I had stuff like that in my act. And I had to get my male dancer assistant to do all of that. He had to like help them walk over here and guide them to the stairs. And it takes away from your performance, but it's got to be done. Like I had to respect what their culture was and what was expected. And I didn't want to be like shamed or like poo-pooed because I did something I wasn't supposed to. And it's it would be very insensitive of me to do that as well. So I had to learn quickly not to do a lot of things, which, you know, here in America is just very normal.
Yeah. They had the WWE have put on professional wrestling shows now in Saudi Arabia twice a year, and they had the first ever women's wrestling match in Saudi Arabia, and again the women had to be here to their toes. They usually in like shorts and like maybe a tank top or something, but now they're covered head to toe, extra large t-shirts again to make sure nothing was on display. But it sounds very similar to what you had to wear just to go out and do it.
And it was especially difficult because I was still performing illusions, like doing sub trunk and stuff like that, and doing that with like extra layers of fabric. It's like, oh, it's hard. Like you're trying to bend over and you're like, oh, I feel so just like thick with all this material. Like I had to adjust how I performed things to be wearing extra layers. Very important.
Your costume is really weighs it up, everything.
Yeah,
because it's also important. So that was a very good getting on.
So they were good.
Yeah,
so
they were good.
The bad.
The bad, I feel like, was when we did the tour in China. So when I first got hired with the company, we were doing a live action version of Now You See Me. So it was the Illusionists partnering with Lionsgate to produce like an on-stage version of the movie. And we were touring all around China. We started in Beijing, went to all these smaller cities, and then we finished in Shanghai. And I feel as though it all just came bad in our last week when we were in Shanghai. So I got food poisoning. Sabine, who was the female magician in the show, she got severe food poisoning 20 minutes before we started the show.
Oh, God.
And so they came to me and they were like, here's your mic pack. Good luck. Like I had to go do the show for her. And we'd had like no rehearsals. I knew what to do because I'd spent 9 weeks listening and watching Sabine. But, you know, she's like the toughest chick I've ever met in my life. She will still go on stage even if she's got like broken legs. So her mentality was like, I'm never going to be out. 10 minutes before the show, she's like sick in the bathroom. And I'm like, oh my God, I actually have to go on. So I said to everyone, like, I know her lines. I'm not 100% sure of like where she stands on stage. So if I'm standing in the wrong spot, just like give me a shove. And they were like, okay. It worked out. We got through. So that was okay. But, you know, it was just everyone seemed to get food poisoning or sick. We had a bunch of the crew that got hospitalized. Someone had like an infection in their spinal fluid or something. Like China was just insane. And then one of the venues, we had no heat. It was snowing outside and they wouldn't turn the heat on because of Chinese law. It had to be a certain date before they could allow large venues to turn on heating. And we were there before that certain date of the year. So we were there like shivering, having to do the water torture cell. And the heater for the water had broken.
Oh, no.
So we're just like, oh my God, China, why are you doing this to us?
It's becoming a David Blaine stunt at this stage.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we pushed through, but it was just like one thing after another that we were just like, you're really testing us. And we're trying real hard to not like have a breakdown, but this is rough. So it's funny when all of us from that tour, when we like chat every now and then, we're like, remember China? And we started this hashtag being like, because China. And it was like this, like all this bad stuff happened, hashtag because China. And it's like, it's ironic now with everything that's happened and the source of it. We're like, well, it's China, but you know. So that was, the show was so fun, but it was like all the other stuff was just like, come on, we just want to perform. Why is all this other bad stuff happening? You know,
you could have hashtag at least it wasn't China. It's like, oh, this show didn't go great, but it wasn't like a China.
Yeah.
One of the China shows. the water was warm in the tank at least.
So the ugly. I'm fortunate enough. I haven't had anything in my career, dance and magic wise, go so severely ugly.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably I was going to say, it's the best story I could think of. It's the ugliest story I could think of. So when we were on tour with the Illusionists and we were in Mexico City, we got there, I think on a Monday. We were opening the show Friday night. So we had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to load into the venue, set up all the props, do all the lighting, do all the staging, rehearse things. So Friday morning comes. At like 3 a.m, I'm in my bed in our hotel room. I'm not feeling well. I'm like, ugh, I feel a bit, like I have a bit of a kind of stomach ache. I wonder if it's something I ate. The hours tick by. I'm getting more pain all up my stomach, all up my back, all up my sides. I'm at this point, like in my bed, crying my eyes out. I call the company manager. It's like 7 a.m. I'm like, I can barely breathe. I can't move. I'm in so much pain. She's like, we're taking you to the hospital. I'm in the emergency room in the hospital in Mexico City at like 8 a.m. We're opening the show at like 6 p.m. And at this point, I was assisting Mark Kalin. I was assisting Sabine. I was the main assistant for the entire show for everyone. And if I was out, it was bad because there wasn't really anyone to fill in for me. So I'm in the hospital in the emergency room for maybe 8 hours. It came back that I had like a severe kidney and bladder infection that had like all the pain had spread like all the way up through me. And they were like, we want to keep you here. And I was like, I have a show. I have to go do a show. And they were like, oh, we highly advise against that. And I was there with the company manager. And the people that were getting ready for the show for the opening night were like messaging, being like, is Abby okay? Can she do the show? We need to know what's happening. And she was just like, I don't think you should do it. And I was like, I'm doing it. So I literally went from the hospital to the venue and I got backstage and everyone's like, you don't look good. And I was like, thanks, we've got a show to do. And so like I went, ripped off my armband thing from the hospital, put on makeup, did my hair, and then we did opening night. And I mean, I felt like death, but I was like, I'm not going to let everyone down. If it had been like, oh, I had a broken leg or something, that's different. But this was just pushing through pain. And they gave me really strong painkillers and all these other medicines that I was just like taking them because I just wanted to feel nothing and get through the show.
Like, you need to know the box. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
What is the box?
We got through it and everything was great. And then, I was obviously exhausted. But within that month that we spent in Mexico City, part of that was like the ugly part of the story. I gave myself a concussion twice doing Subtrunk, which they had to bring in like a doctor and they had to examine me because I was like on the couch like, my head hurts and, it was bad. And then I was doing so many illusions that I had bruises all over my body, like all up my legs, all on my arms and my back and my torso. It looked like I'd been beaten by like baseball bats. And everyone was like, what's wrong with you? Like I used to have to get ice packs and like lie on ice packs in between acts because I was in so much pain from everything. So it was a great tour, but I mean, that was bad. It's never fun to be in the hospital when you have a show to do because part of it's like, I need to recover. And then the other party is like, but I have a show.
It's definitely the ballet mentality coming out of the show must go on, power through the pain.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I actually broke my arm, like my forearm here, and then shattered part of my elbow doing a show years ago. And I had 1 week off and my arm was in like a sling and everything. And after the 1 week, the company said, if you don't go back to performing, we're going to send you back home and we're going to hire someone else. And I went, sling off. I'm here. Give me the drugs. I can perform. And I wrapped my arm in like a skin-colored bandage and put like rhinestone bracelets on it, thinking it would like cover it.
Blend in.
And I did the show. I was in excruciating pain because it hadn't healed. But I was like, I'm going to perform no matter what. You're not going to send me home. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to honor the contract. I'm going to do the shows. And I'm going to be fabulous. And that's what I did. That's like, yeah, it's the dance background. It's the ballet history of like, you push through pain. If you really want it, you keep going. You deal with it. And I think it's also an Australian thing because all of my Australian dancer friends, they're exactly the same. They get injured and they're like, it's just an injury. I'm fine. And they keep going. So I'm like that. And sometimes it's great. And sometimes I ruin myself even more. And I pay for it years down the road.
Houdini had that mentality, and it didn't turn out too well near the end when he kept pushing. But when after he passed away, they found like he had been walking on a broken ankle for weeks.
Oh my god!
But yeah, that's the thing. I once cut my finger before I went on stage, and I went on, and
that's not the same. That's not the same.
Plaster on it, and it was I'm just as brave.